Hello everyone. Tonight we begin not on the marble seats, but beneath them, where light arrives in thin knives and the air tastes of iron and damp stone. You stand barefoot on gritty flagstones, the roar above you rolling like surf against a cavern roof. You will probably not survive this, and somehow that is the clearest thing you know tonight. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're awake with me, drop your location and your local time. I love seeing where you are on the map when you listen. Now turn off the lights, turn on a fan for a soft hum, and let's enjoy tonight's journey together. You descend a narrow stair where the walls sweat and beads. A rat slips past your ankle with the entitlement of a permanent resident. Somewhere above, a vendor calls out roasted chestnuts, the warm, nutty perfume drifting down in thin ribbons that only sharpen the ache in your belly. A guard with a helmet polished by years of other people's fear guides you through a timbered passage, sets a bar across a door behind you, and the underground swallows the world to a wet hush. You feel the room before you see it. Bodies exhale in ragged tides, chains whisper against rings. Someone coughs a cough that has forgotten how to stop. When your eyes adjust, you find a wall, press your shoulders to it, and measure the chamber by echoes. A man beside you murmurs in a language you don't know, and doesn't need you to. His hands tell his story, knuckles split, nails rimmed in black, a loop of cord at his wrist where a better life used to be tied. Overhead, an applause blooms and dies. It could be triumph, it could be a staged mercy. Here the sound carries no meaning beyond volume. A young voice threads the darkness to tell you what you're part of. Venicciones in the morning, hunts, executions at noon, paired combats after. You can't see him, but you can hear the practiced neutrality of someone who has learned to say weather when he means fate. In that careful tone, he adds a dry fact for the sleep-starved. The amphitheater was inaugurated under Emperor Titus in the year AD 80, with 100 days of games, and the city has been hungry for spectacle ever since. Historians still debate whether the crowd comes for justice or just for the pretty geometry of danger. Your stomach answers with its own argument. Someone tears a heel from a stale loaf and offers you a corner the size of a coin. It tastes of damp and storage, and somehow it is exquisite. You joke, quietly, that the arena lacks a proper room service menu. 3 or 4 shadows chuckle, the sound thin but real. It's strange what counts as luxury here. The imagined sweetness of a honeyed date, the rumor of watered wine called pasca, even the scent of chestnuts you will never taste. A scrape of wood, footsteps, voices. A door opens across the corridor and a rectangle of lamplight slants in, catching a small parade. Handlers with goads, men in leather aprons, and what your bones recognize before your eyes confirm, an animal's patience. It snuffs the air, puzzled by human weather. Somewhere behind that door is a great wheel of labor, schools that train fighters, keepers who starve beasts to a precise edge, scribes who assign bodies to time slots like cargo to ships. If the empire is a machine, this is its music. Lists, whistles, measurements. You try to imagine what a circus ledger looks like, probably like a grocery list, if groceries could scream. A guard pauses at your threshold, eyes you the way a baker eyes flour, to judge the yield. He clicks his tongue and moves on. You release a breath you hadn't filed for permission to hold. A man across from you whispers that he once saw a condemned thief try to bribe a warden with 2 figs. The figs vanished, the thief didn't. On the bright side, he adds, at least the figs didn't have to watch. The room does that soft, forbidden laugh again. Humor isn't rebellion here. It's a blanket someone remembered to pass along. Somewhere close, iron clinks against iron. Someone sharpens something. You think of the sun outside working its way past the awnings that shade the seats, of the man charged with turning the awnings with a pulley so the wealthy don't get too warm, of the boy who will sell spiced nuts to the senator who will go home and forget your name even if he hears it announced. This morning, you were a citizen of a province. Tonight, you are a line item. There's a strange peace in reducing yourself to an inventory number, less surface for fear to grip. A memory floats up in spite of you, a roadside inn, a bowl of barley stew steaming beside a brazier. You told a traveling joke about a mule that prayed to the wrong god and nobody laughed, but the bread was warm. Tonight, you tell it again, and somehow it works. Maybe the secret to a joke is timing, maybe it's the acoustics of terror. Maybe anything will do if you whisper it as though you're sharing contraband sleep. A fresher prisoner asks the forbidden question, will there be mercy? Someone answers in the only honest tense available, maybe. The Latin word for crowd, they say, is turba, a turbulence, the same root as trouble. The emperor, if he attends, will sit beneath polished marble and the shadow of his own politics. A thumb will turn and a story will pretend to be moral. Historians still debate whether that thumb truly decided lives or simply translated a mood that was already rolling downhill from the cheap seats. You decide you don't care which version is true. Either way, you are homework for a feeling. A single beam of day filters through a crack the size of a reed. Dust pricks the light like seeds trying to sprout in stone. You count the motes because numbers are a language nothing can confiscate. Outside, a drum taps twice. Handlers answer with a whistle. The room realigns itself into listening. You discover a part of your body that is only ear. A boy you can't see hums an old tune as if tempting sleep back into a place it abandoned. Someone mentions, in the tone of a bored librarian, that a lion once sat down mid-spectacle and licked its paw for a full minute. Bestial I ever saw, he says. Nobody died. And I learned cats are professionals. You decide to keep that picture for when your mind threatens to run. If you must be carried somewhere, let it be toward an animal ignoring instructions. The roar swells again, nearer, and then ebbs, as though the amphitheater breathed through you, all lungs, all throat. If there were a pamphlet about how to wait here, it would be one sentence long. Sit near a wall, share bread, borrow laughter, and keep your feet under you. You wrap your arms around your knees and pretend it is a better blanket than it is. You are not asleep, but you drift, not toward dreams, toward exactness, the exact placement of a chain ring in stone, the exact angle of a splinter in your palm, the exact way a word like tomorrow means only that it doesn't mean now. Above, a trumpet scrawls a line of gold in air. Below, someone murmurs a prayer with the consistency of water. You add your breath to the inventory. Words spread down the corridor. Lists are being read 2 rooms over. The words stick in the throat of the hallway, then shake themselves free. The names sound like other people until they don't. You listen for yours and don't hear it. That is not luck. It is a reprieve you will have to carry carefully, like a lamp with oil you can't afford to spill. You could hate the crowd. You could forgive it. Neither will alter the schedule. The city is hungry, and the city must sleep after it eats. You touch the stone at your back, its chill almost tender. It has held so many backs that it has learned how to be a shoulder. You lean into it, and let your weight do the thinking. Somewhere, very faintly, you can still smell chestnuts. You store that too, against the hour when every other scent will be sand. You wake again with the sense that the building itself is shaking, though it is only the pulse of thousands of voices filtering through stone. The Colosseum is not merely an amphitheater, it is Rome rehearsing itself as eternal. Above, emperors have staged gifts to the people in this oval of sand. Politics here is a theater performed with real bodies, the bodies of men and animals. You can feel the weight of that machine even from underground. The year is still young, but the calendar already groans with scheduled games, festivals, imperial anniversaries, victories to commemorate. These spectacles are not optional entertainment. They are a declaration that Rome can afford to kill what others cannot even afford to feed. You hear a man speak of Titus, who inaugurated the arena in AD 80 with 100 days of shows. He recites it like a bedtime story, though the images it conjures are anything but comforting. He describes how exotic animals were brought from Africa, how gladiators from every province were paraded, how the crowd numbered more than 50,000, each seat stratified by class. Even here, beneath the stands, the shape of Rome's hierarchy is clear. Senators and equestrians above, citizens lower, women and the poor on the top benches, and you at the very bottom, the foundation none of them acknowledge. Another prisoner mutters about the awnings, the great velarium that shades the audience. He once worked the rigging. Imagine ropes thicker than a man's wrist, sailors pulling in concert to spread linen that made noon feel like evening. He says the wealthy could recline under shadow while below men sweated and bled. Historians still debate whether the awning was practical or symbolic, but you suspect it did both. Shielded citizens from sun while proving that Rome could domesticate even the sky. Food above is a comfort you can smell but not reach. Vendors walk the aisles with trays of olives, dates, and honeycakes. Amphorae of wine are poured into cheap cups, and the crowd grows louder with every swallow. Someone jokes that you should start your own menu down here, stale barley bread and a drizzle of thin broth. Vintage, unknown. The laugh is hollow, but welcome. One man remembers a time when he was free, when he ate dormice stuffed with nuts, a delicacy of Roman banquets. Now he chews crusts so hard they could be weapons. The guards pass by, their sandals slapping stone. One carries a tablet with names etched in neat wax lines. The sound of his stylus scratching down corrections is more chilling than any chain. That tablet is the script of the next day's spectacle, and you are one of its syllables. When he looks in at you, his expression is impersonal, the same face one might wear to count coins. He calls a name, not yours, and two men are pulled out. They do not resist. Resistance is not part of the role. You lean back, let the sound of the crowd wash over you again. Somewhere in that rising tide is an emperor performing generosity, senators calculating popularity, commoners demanding diversion. It is strange to think that this mass of strangers holds more power over your life than your gods do. But perhaps the gods have seats in the front row, watching like everyone else. As night falls again, the voices above thin, then scatter. The amphitheater empties like a drained vessel. A hush spreads through the underbelly, broken only by shuffling bodies and the faint scrape of rats. Someone hums a lullaby, not to a child, but to the room itself, as if stone could be soothed to sleep. You close your eyes, and for a moment the Colosseum feels almost calm. Tomorrow it will roar again, and you will still be part of its inventory.
The torchlight has gone, and with it the illusion that stone walls can be kind. You sit in the blackness with your knees drawn close, feeling the floor press into bone. Somewhere, water drips at a steady pace, and that drip becomes a metronome marking out the hours. This is your first full night as a prisoner beneath the Colosseum, and the architecture seems intent on teaching you its language. The walls breathe damp, the ceiling sheds fragments of dust, and the corridors funnel sound so that a shout in one cell becomes a ghost in another. You are not alone. Bodies press around you, each man adjusting in the dark to make room, each breath added to a stale reservoir of air. Someone snores, someone coughs, someone prays. Their voices rise and fall, forming a chorus without conductor. You realize that the empire has found a way to make even silence noisy. Historians still debate whether prisoners were kept here for hours or days before their appearance, but you already know that even one night is enough to carve grooves into the mind. You shift, and your hand meets a shard of pottery left on the ground. It is a broken M for a handle, once curved to carry wine or oil, now only a fragment. You trace it like an amulet, and imagine the M for a hole, perhaps used at a feast, its contents poured into silver cups for men who will never think of the shadows below their entertainments. The contrast tastes bitter. A guard walks past, dragging the butt of a spear along the floor. The sound is deliberate, a reminder that sleep is optional. The man across from you mutters about past campaigns, how he was captured in Dacia when the legions marched north. His voice is thick with resentment and exhaustion. He recalls the mountains, the fire of resistance, and the sudden collapse into chains. You do not know his language, but the tone is enough. You recognize grief when you hear it. Food arrives, if you can call it that. A wooden bucket with scraps of barley mash, ladled out with little ceremony. The mash is sticky, tasteless, already turning sour. Someone jokes that it is better than the gruel of the mines, though he admits it lacks variety. You force yourself to eat. Even in captivity, your body is still an empire of its own, demanding tribute. One man gnaws at a piece of salted fish so rancid the smell fills the corridor. He claims it was once served at banquets as a delicacy called garum, though the joke earns more coughs than laughs. The darkness plays tricks on the mind. You imagine the seats above, curving tier on tier, filled with citizens who will never know what this night feels like. They are sleeping in their domus, bellies full, perhaps dreaming of tomorrow's spectacle. For them, the games are diversion. For you, they are destiny. The thought circles endlessly, and you find yourself envying their ignorance. To break the spell, a young voice tells a story. He recalls a festival in his village where children released doves at dawn. The birds rose in a sudden cloud, their wings flashing against the sun. He says he still sees them when he closes his eyes. The room is quiet for a moment, as though everyone is trying to borrow that vision. Someone chuckles that if doves flew here, they would be plucked for stew before reaching the rafters. The laughter is thin, but sufficient. Time stretches. Your body aches, but your mind refuses to rest. The stone is both bed and burden. You imagine morning, the clatter of gates, the summons of names, the shuffle of bare feet onto sand. You wonder if the crowd will cheer louder for blood than for mercy. The answer does not matter, because you will be the material from which they weave their entertainment. At last your eyes close. You do not dream, not properly. Instead you see fragments, a lion's shadow pacing, the shimmer of steel, the curve of an awning high above. Sleep here is not escape, but rehearsal. Every image is another angle of the arena you will soon face. And so your first night below ends, not with peace, but with the heavy certainty that the building itself is already consuming you.
Morning does not arrive in the way you remember it. There is no sunrise here, only a thinning of the dark when handlers bring torches down the corridor. You wake to the scrape of sandals, to the wooden clack of buckets set on the floor. Hunger has been gnawing all night, a patient animal with teeth sharper than fear. Now it finds its object, the day's ration. A guard ladles barley gruel in wooden bowls. The liquid is gray, half soup and half paste, with a few husks floating like survivors of a shipwreck. You lift the bowl, and the smell is sour, but not yet spoiled. A man beside you licks his lips, then whispers that once, on campaign, he ate roasted kid goat flavored with herbs. He shakes his head, swallows the mash, and says the Empire has a talent for turning feasts into punishment. Someone else chuckles that the dish is almost medicinal. In another age, perhaps it would be sold in a tavern as a cure for indigestion. You try not to think about food above. The amphitheater is filling even now with vendors selling honeyed dates, fried chickpeas, olives drizzled in oil. The scent sometimes drifts down the corridors and mixes cruelly with the reality here. Your own ration feels like an afterthought, enough to keep you alive until the crowd needs you. Historians still debate whether these portions were calculated deliberately, but every mouthful convinces you that control is the goal, not nourishment. There are stranger offerings, too. A guard tosses in a basket of crusts left over from a soldier's mess. Mixed among them is a fig, half rotten but still sweet. A scuffle breaks out, brief and desperate, until the fruit is gone. The man who swallows it grins as though he has tasted ambrosia. You remember once drinking watered wine, called pasca, a soldier's drink sharp with vinegar. Even that would be luxury now. The hunger is not just of the belly. You watch men chew on memory, describing meals of their childhood. Lentils simmered in clay pots, fresh bread dipped in olive oil, cheese aged until it cracked like old marble. Their voices grow hushed, as though sharing secrets too fragile for the stone. One man closes his eyes and describes the smell of cinnamon from a caravan he once saw in Antioch. The rest of you breathe with him, savoring the phantom spice. Your own body begins to tremble. Hunger narrows the world to the rim of the bowl in your hands. You eat slowly, stretching the illusion of plenty, each spoonful measured as though it matters. The truth is that it does matter. Every calorie is a vote for survival, though the election is rigged. Someone jokes that the emperor himself should sample this cuisine. Another replies that emperors prefer their justice served with garlands, not with barley husks. The laughter ripples, tired but necessary. A cough interrupts the mirth. One prisoner spits blood into his bowl. The others look away. Hunger breeds illness, and illness spreads faster than rumor in a place like this. Yet even then, the bowl is raised again, emptied with stubborn resolve. As you finish, the guard slams the bucket lid and leaves. The sound reverberates, final as a decree. Your stomach is not satisfied, only silenced for now. But the ritual of eating binds the room together. For a moment, you are less enemy, less stranger. You are simply a body in need, sharing the same bleak banquet. When the torches retreat, darkness resumes its reign. You lie back against the wall, the taste of barley still clinging to your tongue, and wonder how many more mornings will come like this. The amphitheater groans overhead, already awake, already hungry. And you, sustained by gruel and memory, remain part of its diet.
The air below the Colosseum grows heavier with each passing day. It does not circulate, but gathers, storing sweat, smoke, and breath until the chamber itself feels feverish. You wake with a cough and discover half the room does too. Sound carries quickly underground. Every hack and wheeze echoes as though illness itself has a voice. No one speaks of contagion, but everyone knows. Historians still debate how long prisoners were held before the games, but you can tell that even a week in this air could carve lungs into ruin. You feel your skin tacky with grime. Washing is impossible, and the bucket of water in the corner is reserved for drinking, not cleansing. A man beside you scratches constantly at his forearms, where lice have found a thriving colony. He jokes that at least he is never lonely, but the humor cannot mask the raw welts he leaves behind. Another prisoner wraps a strip of cloth around his ankle where infection has reddened the flesh. He says he will be fine. You both know he will not. Meals do little to restore strength. Today's ration is a heel of bread so stiff it could be mistaken for stone. Someone softens it with water and claims it tastes better that way. Another prisoner recalls the banquet halls of Rome, where garum, fermented fish sauce, perfumed nearly every dish. Here the only scent is the sour tang of mold. The contrast is cruel, almost comic, and a few of you laugh as if the absurdity itself is nourishment. The darkness deepens the sickness. Without sunlight, your body forgets how to measure time. Men complain of dizziness, of aching eyes, of dreams that intrude even while they are awake. One prisoner swears he saw a shaft of golden light in the corner, but when others look, there is only stone. Perhaps the mind invents visions to keep itself from collapsing.
You hear rumors of remedies used in the city above, honey to soothe throats, herbal compresses, prayers whispered in temples. Down here, the cure is endurance. A man with a fever mutters in his sleep, reciting names that do not belong to anyone here. You place a hand on his shoulder, though you cannot offer more. For a moment you imagine you are both lying on a hillside somewhere, sharing the open air. The illusion almost convinces you. Yet there is resilience too. Someone breaks the silence with a joke. At least we won't live long enough to die of old age. Groans turn into laughter, the kind that leaves you breathless. Even humor feels medicinal here. Another man describes the gladiator schools where fighters are trained with discipline and diets designed for strength. We are in the wrong program, he says. Our training is simply to rot. Again, the chamber shakes with hollow laughter. When the coughing subsides, you notice the faint scurry of vermin. Rats run openly along the walls, fattened on scraps dropped by handlers. One darts across your foot, bold as a citizen in the forum. A prisoner lunges, catches it, and without hesitation, kills it against the stone. He holds it up, half proud, half desperate. Some recoil, but others watch hungrily. In another life, this would be pest control. Here, it is dinner waiting to happen. The night closes in thicker than usual, weighted by fever and fatigue. You press your head against the wall and feel it cool against your skin, a brief mercy. Above, the city sleeps in its villas, wrapped in linens, dreaming of tomorrow's amusements. Below, you count heartbeats and try to convince your lungs to keep their rhythm. Sickness is not just a condition here, it is a second prison inside the first. And still, you remain, breathing in the same stale dark, waiting for a trumpet that will call you not to healing, but to spectacle.
The chamber feels smaller tonight, as though the walls have crept closer, eager to press you into silence. A guard drags open a door across the corridor, and in the thin wedge of lamplight, you glimpse another prisoner being moved. His wrists are bound in iron, but his face is bare of war paint or foreign scars. He is no soldier captured in campaign, no enemy of Rome. He is a Roman thief, condemned not for losing to legions, but for offending the law. In this place, prisoners are not a single tribe. They are a mosaic of crimes and conquests, fitted together by the state's appetite for blood. You study him as he is pushed into your cell. He carries himself differently, with the casual arrogance of someone born under Roman roofs. His Latin is sharp, almost elegant, as he mutters curses at the guard. He claims he once drank wine on the Capitoline Hill and now must sip air in the belly of the amphitheater. You envy his defiance, though you wonder how long it will last. The thief tells his story in fragments. He stole from a senator's household a bracelet of gold and a small jar of perfume. He laughs as he admits it, as though the memory itself is still sweet. He says his trial was over before it began, the verdict sealed by status more than evidence. They don't need proof, he remarks, only spectacle. Historians still debate whether executions here were punishment or theater, but the answer seems obvious as he speaks. His body is not property reclaimed, it is material repurposed for entertainment. The room listens as though this new voice offers a mirror. Some scoff at him. What is a petty thief compared to prisoners of war? Others nod, understanding that the Colosseum does not care about categories. Whether captured in Dacia or condemned in Rome, you are all fodder for the same machine. He produces a folded scrap from his tunic. It is a letter, hastily scrawled before his arrest. He cannot deliver it, but he reads it aloud. In it he apologizes to his sister, describes the scent of the perfume he stole, and jokes that she should wear it to his funeral. The words are clumsy, yet intimate. The chamber is quiet after he finishes, as though even stone is holding its breath. A handler arrives with food, barley mash again, this time laced with something bitter. The thief tastes it, grimaces, and calls it seasoning. The rest of you eat without complaint. Someone cracks a joke that Rome's cooks are saving their best recipes for the afterlife. Laughter rises, uneven but genuine.
Later, as the torches fade, the thief whispers to you. He says he is more afraid of silence than of beasts. A lion, at least, announces itself. The silence is sly. You nod, though words feel heavy. You think of how tomorrow he may be let out first, his arrogance spent in a roar that is not his own. The chamber drifts toward uneasy sleep. Above, the arena rests in its grandeur, awaiting the next dawn. Down here, you learn that captivity has many origins, but one destination. Soldier, thief, slave, foreigner, it matters little. The Colosseum equalizes in a way the law never could. You lie back, the thief's words still circling in your ears, and realize you have been given not a companion, but another reminder of how the empire feeds. Sleep is thin tonight, shredded by the noises rising from the neighboring chambers. Metal scrapes against whetstones, the harsh song of blades being tested for the morning. You can hear handlers shouting, their voices bouncing along the corridors. Somewhere deeper, animals stir. A growl rolls low, followed by the impatient pacing of claws on stone. The air carries their musk, sharp, hot, wild. You are close enough to smell fear that is not human. The thief sits near you, restless, muttering that dawn will write his sentence. He fingers the edge of his letter, the words already memorized. Others in the room whisper prayers. One man speaks to Jupiter, another to a god from far beyond the empire's borders, and a third simply speaks to his mother as if she might still hear. The voices braid together, a strange litany. Historians still debate whether the condemned were told in advance which role they would play, but from the tension tonight, you know the ignorance itself is part of the punishment. Food arrives late. The guards toss in the basket of crusts, harder than usual, perhaps to test your teeth before the beasts do. Hidden among them is something stranger, a small loaf speckled with ash. Someone claims it is a soldier's trick, bread baked in haste on embers. You bite into it and taste smoke, bitter but filling. Another man jokes that it is Rome's version of fine dining, rustic, artisanal, with notes of despair. The laugh that follows is brittle, but it keeps the night moving. Above, the amphitheater is being prepared. You can hear the creak of pulleys as awnings are drawn back, the shuffle of workers smoothing the sand. The stage must be perfect. It is unsettling to realize that the city is tending to its theater while you sit below, part of the scenery yet to be arranged. A boy in the shadows mutters that even the lions are brushed and fed better than you. Someone answers, "Only until tomorrow." Your mind begins to wander, refusing sleep but circling images of what might come. You imagine the bright flood of daylight when the gate opens, the deafening cheer that will pour down. You picture the emperor, perhaps Domitian himself, leaning back with the ease of someone who holds your breath in his hand. You try to guess whether he will notice you at all, or whether you will be just another anonymous thrill. A man across the chamber tries to lighten the mood. He recounts a rumor of a prisoner who once tripped while entering the arena, only for the crowd to cheer louder at the comedy than at the fight. Maybe stumble, he suggests, and you'll be remembered as entertainment rather than lunch. The room chuckles, not because it is funny, but because the alternative is silence. The thief finally breaks his muttering with a question. Would you rather face a lion or a sword? The answers vary. One man swears beasts are quicker, another insists men are crueler. You do not answer because the truth is, neither appeals. You simply want to see one more sunrise, even if it blinds you as you step into the arena. The torches are extinguished. Darkness thickens again. Yet the noises persist. Blades singing, animals pacing, prayers whispered against the stone. You lie awake, your pulse mimicking the rhythm of those unseen claws. It is the night before the games,
and the Colosseum itself seems to breathe faster, anticipating its feast.
The morning comes not with sunlight, but with the clatter of locks and the bark of orders. You are roused by the scrape of sandals, by handlers shouting names in harsh Latin. Men sit up, blinking against torchlight, faces pale beneath grime. Today the uncertainty ends, though not in the way anyone hoped. The thief is called first. His face hardens, but his hands tremble. He presses the folded letter into your palm without looking at you. You do not promise to deliver it. You both know you cannot. He only wants the gesture of passing it on, as if words could survive longer than flesh. Then he is led out, and his absence weighs heavier than chains. In the chamber, whispers rise. Some men debate whether mercy is possible. Others argue that mercy is only another word for disappointment. The guards claim the emperor can spare a prisoner if the crowd wills it, but historians still argue whether those gestures were ever real. Perhaps mercy was staged like everything else, a thumb turned for effect while the script never changed. Food is delivered, but no one eats. The mash sits untouched, steam curling upward. Hunger has been replaced by a sharper appetite, the need to know. You wonder whether you will be given a sword or pushed out unarmed, whether you will stand alone or be paired with another. The difference matters, though both paths end the same way. Someone laughs bitterly. He says it is a kind of choice, though not the kind any man wants. Do you die quickly, charging into a blade, or slowly, toyed with by an animal? Another prisoner suggests that dying slowly ensures the crowd remembers you. Better a legend of suffering than a footnote of silence, he murmurs. You are not sure you agree, but you cannot deny the logic. A handler enters, smelling of oil and sweat. He reads names from the wax tablet and assigns roles. One man is handed a battered helmet, another a wooden shield. You realize that the props are part of the performance, the condemned dressed not as themselves, but as villains from stories, criminals dressed as barbarians, slaves disguised as enemies of Rome. Your identity is being erased and rewritten to fit the crowd's expectations. The thief's voice lingers in your mind. He had asked, would you rather face a lion or a sword? Now the question feels less hypothetical. You watch as one prisoner is led away toward the beast cages. Another is handed a trident and net, mocked as a gladiator without training. The absurdity is cruel, but calculated. Rome knows how to choreograph spectacle. You are not called yet. Relief and dread mingle in equal measure. Each name that is taken before yours feels like a reprieve and a warning. You notice how men walk differently once summoned, some stiff with pride, others staggering, a few oddly calm. They are all stories already being consumed by the crowd above. The chamber empties slowly, and with each departure the silence grows heavier. You imagine the thief stepping into light, blinking, hearing the roar. You wonder whether he stumbled, whether he fought, whether the crowd laughed. His letter still rests in your hand, its words fragile as breath. The handlers return for more. You brace yourself. The choice is not yours to make. Yet in the waiting you realize the cruelest truth. It is not dying that terrifies you, but the performance of it. The knowledge that your last breath will be measured not by gods, but by applause.
The corridor falls strangely still after the last group is led away. The echoes of their footsteps fade, leaving behind a hush that feels almost unnatural. For the first time in days, you hear something delicate, the steady drip of water from a crack in the ceiling. Each drop lands with a soft patter, like a clock too tired to keep proper time. You tilt your head back. Through a narrow seam in the stone, a thread of daylight pierces the gloom. Dust floats in the beam, swirling like tiny stars trapped in their own orbit. Men around you fall silent, watching the motes dance. It is not much, but for a few minutes, it is enough to make the chamber feel less like a tomb. Someone mutters that perhaps the gods are generous after all. Another snorts and says it is only a trick of bad construction. Historians still debate whether prisoners ever saw the sun before entering the arena, but in this moment, the speculation doesn't matter. You see light, and it makes the air easier to breathe. One man begins to hum. It is not a song you recognize, just a low rise and fall, the kind of tune that belongs to fields rather than prisons. Soon another voice joins, then another, until the room holds a fragile chorus. The sound does not chase away the fear, but it softens the edges of it. You close your eyes and let the hum wash over you, pretending it is the wind moving through trees. Food arrives quietly. A small basket with olives shriveled from age and a heel of bread gone tough. You chew slowly, savoring the salt on your tongue. Someone jokes that Rome's chefs have perfected the art of disappointment. The line earns a few tired laughs, but the act of eating together steadies you more than the food itself. The quiet brings memory closer. A prisoner across the room describes his village at dusk, when lanterns flickered in windows and smoke curled from hearths. He paints the scene with such detail, dogs barking, children chasing one another in the dust, that for a moment you are there with him. The others listen intently, drinking in the vision as though it were water. In the stillness, imagination becomes the only feast you can afford. The hum fades, replaced by silence once more, yet the silence no longer feels cruel. It is layered now with dust motes, with remembered lanterns, with the faint taste of salt. For a fleeting hour, you are not a prisoner, but a witness to small mercies hidden in stone. Above, the amphitheater readies itself for the next round of spectacle. But here, below, time lingers gently. You lean against the wall, close your eyes, and breathe in rhythm with the drip of water, as though sinking yourself to a quieter world. It is not freedom, but it is a pause, and a pause is rare enough to feel like a gift.
When the torches flare again, you realize you are not just inside a prison, but inside a mechanism. The Colosseum is a factory of spectacle, and you are one cog in its design. The guards talk openly as they pass, confident no prisoner will leave here with breath enough to tell what he has heard. From their chatter, you piece together the workings of the machine. There are the ludi, the gladiator schools, scattered across the empire but feeding into Rome like tributaries to a river. Men are trained there with diets rich in barley and beans, their bodies conditioned to endure. You are not one of them, but you will be thrown into their choreography all the same. Historians still debate whether these schools offered paths of honor or merely prolonged captivity, but to you, the distinction is academic. Either way, they supply muscle to the spectacle. There are the venatores, the beast hunters, who keep lions, leopards, even elephants ready for display. They starve the animals just enough to sharpen instincts, but not enough to weaken them. A guard brags that one lion has not eaten for 3 days, its roar now shaking the cages like a drum. You imagine its yellow eyes, the weight of its hunger, and you wonder if it dreams of you as clearly as you dream of it. There are the scribes, unseen yet powerful, who inscribe wax tablets with names and roles. They decide who will be cast as barbarian, who as criminal, who as victim for the wild beasts. With a stroke of stylus, they erase identities and replace them with costumes of myth. Perhaps tomorrow you will not even be yourself, but an impersonation of someone Rome hates. The efficiency is chilling. Even food becomes part of the system. Today's ration is a bowl of thin lentil stew, its taste flat, its purpose functional. A man lifts his portion and says it is fuel for the spectacle, no more, no less. Another mutters that lentils were once offered at funerals. Perhaps Rome is already mourning you with this meal. A third man laughs that at least lentils are high in protein. For a moment, the room shakes with mirth, a parody of health advice whispered underground.
The guards speak too of the awnings above, the great velarium adjusted by sailors, and of the editors, the magistrates who sponsor games to win favor. It is a network of logistics, politics, and architecture, all converging on sand. The Colosseum is not simply a building, it is Rome reminding itself of Rome, a mirror polished with blood. You lean back and realize how thoroughly the system absorbs you. Your hunger, your fear, even your breath are accounted for. The machine has no interest in who you were before. It wants only the energy you can release when the gate opens. And when you are spent, it will move on without pause, as efficient as water flowing downhill. A prisoner across the room sums it up with grim humor. We are not men anymore. We are paperwork. The others laugh, thin but honest. You find yourself laughing too, because sometimes a joke is the only way to tell the truth. When the guards leave, silence returns, heavy with knowledge. You feel the cogs turning above, preparing the grand illusion of glory. You are not the audience. You are the raw material. And tomorrow, the machine will spend you.
The day stretches without mercy. Torches burn low, then flare again, but no water arrives. The bucket in the corner has been empty since dawn, and each throat in the chamber rasps like sandpaper. Hunger you can endure. Thirst is different. It scrapes at you from within, a hollow ache that turns your tongue into stone. You hear the guards speak of shortages. The animals drink first. Lions, leopards, and bears must be kept alive until their moment in the sand, and so men wait while beasts are refreshed. Someone mutters that Rome's priorities are plain: better to starve prisoners than to risk a sluggish lion. Historians still debate whether prisoners were deliberately deprived to weaken them before the games, but tonight it feels less like speculation than certainty. Your lips crack when you whisper. A fellow prisoner tilts his bowl to catch condensation dripping from the ceiling. He licks at it, eyes closed, as though savoring fine wine. Another man swears he can still taste the river he bathed in as a child, its coolness on his skin, its water cupped in his palms. Memory itself becomes a drink, though it quenches nothing. Food is tossed in, crusts of bread dusted with flour, dry enough to choke. You chew slowly, each swallow making the thirst sharper. One man jokes that the empire has invented a new punishment: bread without water. Another replies that it is innovation worthy of a senator. The laughter is thin, but it keeps you from despair. Exhaustion drags at you. The air is heavy, the chamber crowded, and sleep offers no refuge. You close your eyes and see mirages, fountains splashing in Roman plazas, amphorae brimming with wine, the glimmer of silver cups. You know these are illusions, but your body lunges toward them all the same. Someone begins to speak of posca, the soldier's vinegar drink, sharp and bracing. He claims it was better than any vintage. You would believe anything now. The thief's absence is felt more keenly. His jokes once carried the room, but now only silence presses down. You imagine him somewhere above, already part of the crowd's memory, his letters still folded in your palm. You resist the urge to drink your own sweat. When the guards finally bring water, it is a single jar, passed hand to hand. The taste is metallic, warm, faintly sour, but you swallow greedily. For a moment you feel reborn, lungs filling, skin loosening its grip on bone. Then the jar is gone, and the ache remains, only dulled. Exhaustion folds over you, heavier than chains. You lie back against the stone, aware that tomorrow you may not rise. Yet even here, humor clings stubbornly. A prisoner sighs and says, "At least when we die, we'll never be thirsty again." The chamber erupts in quiet laughter, brittle but real. For a few minutes, you laugh until your ribs hurt, until thirst becomes a joke you can almost forgive. Above, the amphitheater readies its spectacle. Below, you sink into half-sleep, lips still cracked, body trembling, waiting for the next summons.
The amphitheater above lies empty now, its arches silhouetted against a sky fading to dusk. The crowd is gone, the vendors too, leaving scraps of food and the faint perfume of spilt wine. What lingers is not the spectacle, but the residue. Silence, layered with memory. Below, you sit in the dim chamber, your back pressed to stone still damp with the day's breath. Around you, men drift into uneasy sleep. Some murmur names of loved ones, others snore, others simply stare at nothing. The chamber hums with exhaustion, but also with something quieter, acceptance. You realize that the Colosseum is not simply a place of endings. It is a place where endings are rehearsed over and over until they no longer shock. Historians still debate whether these deaths changed anything for Rome at large. Down here, the answer is obvious. They changed everything for the men who lived them. You think of the thief, of his letter still folded in your hand. Its paper is frayed, the ink smudged, yet it has endured. Perhaps words, fragile as they are, survive longer than bodies. You whisper a line from it, a fragment of apology, and it feels as though the whole chamber listens. For a moment, his voice lives again, carried on yours. Food tonight is meager, a crust of bread, a dried fig, almost more pitiful than hunger itself. You chew slowly, letting the sweetness of the fig stretch further than its size. Someone jokes that Rome has finally granted you a feast. Another replies that at least figs were once the fruit of emperors, and now emperors and prisoners alike must taste them. Laughter spreads, quiet, but genuine, weaving connection in the dark. The sand of the arena is still clinging to your skin, your hair, your clothes. You rub at it, but it remains, embedded. You realize it always will. The Colosseum leaves its mark not only in wounds, but in grains that refuse to be washed away. Each one carries the echo of roars, of claws, of sunlight too bright to bear. You close your eyes, and in the darkness you see again the shaft of dust motes from earlier, glowing in stolen light. You choose to hold on to that instead of the roar. You imagine walking into that light, the stone warming, the air opening, the crowd fades, the empire fades, and only the simple beam remains. Above, the city quiets into evening. Below, you surrender to sleep, carrying with you the fragments of a day that consumed so many lives. What remains is not glory or spectacle, but echoes in the sand. A torn strap, a shared fig, a joke whispered against despair. They endure longer than the roar, longer than the emperor's gaze, longer than even Rome itself.
The chamber has grown quieter, but the silence is not peace. It is the sound of men hollowed out, voices dulled by fatigue. You feel your own strength thinning, not just in your limbs, but in your will. The Colosseum is less a prison of stone than a test of endurance, pressing until cracks form in every mind. A man near the door begins whispering bargains to himself. He insists that if he fights well, perhaps the emperor will spare him. Another scoffs, saying the emperor spares no one, but then lowers his voice, as though the walls might punish disbelief. Someone else claims he heard of a prisoner granted freedom after entertaining the crowd with unexpected bravery. Historians still debate such stories, wondering whether they were exceptions or myths invented to keep hope alive. You listen, torn between cynicism and need. Even false hope can be a kind of nourishment. The ration today is little more than watered porridge, thin enough to slosh in the bowl. A man stirs it with his finger and jokes that Rome has invented soup flavored with absinthe. Another suggests they call it Colosseum stew, served with despair on the side. The chamber laughs, and for a moment the walls shake with it. Humor feels reckless, like stealing from the empire's storehouse of control. But cracks deepen in stranger ways. One prisoner begins to talk to a patch of stone as though it were his wife. He strokes the wall, whispers her name, and smiles at her silence. No one interrupts. Madness here is not mocked. It is a form of travel, a way of stepping outside the present. Another man carves lines into the dirt with his fingernail, each line a day he swears he has survived. You know the count is wrong, but you don't correct him. Arithmetic, too, can be salvation. At night, voices grow sharper. Arguments break out over scraps, over space against the wall, over whose turn it is to sleep near the trickle of water. Anger rises quickly, but fades just as fast, burned out by exhaustion. You sense that the Colosseum does not need to lift a sword. It only needs to wait for men to collapse under their own weight. You catch yourself laughing at things that would never have been funny before. A rat drags a piece of bread across the floor and two men chase it, stumbling in the dark. One slips, curses, and the rest of you laugh until your ribs ache. The laughter is wild, unsteady, a reminder that sanity itself is fraying. Lying back, you wonder whether you were breaking too. You trace the thief's letter with your thumb, though you cannot read its words anymore. The letters blur in the gloom. You think of the lives you once knew, fields, markets, families, and realize they are becoming less vivid. The chamber is replacing them with its own reality. Above, a trumpet blares faintly, signaling some rehearsal or preparation. The sound is sharp, foreign, yet it cuts through your haze. You remember what waits beyond these walls: sand, weapons, a crowd demanding spectacle. And you know the breaking point is not the fight itself, but the waiting that shapes you into something ready to be spent.
The door slams open with a violence that makes every man jump. Torches flare, guards shout names, and suddenly the waiting is over. When your name is spoken, it does not sound like you. It sounds like a syllable detached from memory, a word meant for a stranger. Still, you rise. Your legs tremble, stiff from stone, but the guards push you forward until moving feels inevitable. The corridor stretches long and narrow, the ceiling low enough that you bow your head. At the end is a rectangle of light, blinding compared to the darkness behind you. With every step, the roar grows louder. It is not words, but a single vast sound, a tide pulling you toward itself. The air changes too, warmer, full of dust and the scent of oil lamps and sweat. You are climbing out of the underworld into something harsher. When you emerge, daylight strikes like a weapon. The Colosseum is enormous, its tiers stacked with thousands of faces, all leaning forward. The architecture is overwhelming, arches upon arches, banners flapping, the velarium stretched above like a sail. You squint, but the glare of the sand blinds you, so bright it seems to swallow the sky. A handler thrusts a weapon into your hands, a dull sword nicked from use. It feels heavy, foreign. A wooden shield follows, cracked at the rim. The guards shove you farther onto the sand, into the center of the stage. You realize the crowd is not cheering for you. They are cheering for what you will become: struggle, spectacle, story. Across the arena, a gate lifts. From the shadow emerges a lion, its mane ragged but its body powerful, ribs faintly showing from calculated hunger. The roar it releases shakes the sand, rattles your bones. The crowd erupts, ecstatic. You understand then that Rome has choreographed this moment, balancing your fear against the beast's hunger, orchestrating a scene that will linger in memory. Your breath shortens. The sword in your hand feels like a toy. The lion paces, eyes fixed, tail lashing. Somewhere above, a senator lifts his cup. The emperor leans forward. Historians still debate whether their gestures ever truly swayed outcomes, but here you see how little it matters. The crowd is the real ruler, and they want a performance. The lion charges. You raise the shield instinctively, the impact jolting through your body, knocking you backward. Sand fills your mouth. You stagger up, the roar of the crowd louder than the animals. You swing wildly, steel meeting nothing but air. The lion circles, waiting. You realize this is not just combat. It is theater, and you are the actor too terrified to remember his lines. Then, strangely, a laugh bursts from you. It is absurd, fighting a beast in front of 50,000 strangers, all of whom will forget your name by nightfall. The laugh surprises even you, but it carries, and the crowd cheers louder. They believe it is bravado, not despair. You stumble again, sword raised, laughter spilling out, and suddenly you understand that even dying can be entertainment. The lion lunges once more. You feel the sand give under your feet, the sunlight burning your eyes, the weight of Rome pressing from every tear. You raise the shield, the crowd roars approval, and for a moment you are not a prisoner, but the center of an empire's gaze.
Silence arrives in pieces. First, the lion is hauled back through its gate, its growls fading into the shadows. Then the handlers sweep the sand with rakes, erasing the scuffs and stains as if smoothing a page for the next story. Finally, the crowd shifts, their voices breaking into smaller conversations, some laughing, some calling for more wine. The thunder that had filled the arena dissolves into scattered murmurs. You lie half collapsed against the wall of the corridor, shield cracked, sword dropped, lungs burning. The guards drag you back below, not gently, but not cruelly either, just business. Their hands smell of iron and oil. You realize they have done this countless times, pulling one body out to make space for the next. The empire does not pause between acts. In the chamber again, the men stare. Some whisper questions. What did you see? What did it feel like? You try to answer, but the words stick. How do you describe sunlight turned into a weapon, or the way a crowd's roar can crush thought itself? You only manage fragments. The sand, the eyes, the sound that felt like drowning. That is enough. They nod, understanding more than your words could give. Food is thrown in. Olives, wrinkled and salty. A scrap of bread. You chew without tasting. One man jokes that Rome rewards survivors with delicacies fit for slaves. Another mutters that garum, the famous fish sauce, would at least make it edible. The humor feels thinner now, stretched across exhaustion. The thief's letter is still in your hand. You unfold it again, though the words are blurred by sweat and grime. You read them aloud softly, not for him anymore, but for everyone who listens. The room grows quiet, each man hearing his own family between the lines. For a few moments, the chamber feels like a gathering, not a pen. Above, the seats empty, sandals scrape, laughter drifts, amphorae clink. The crowd disperses, their hunger sated until tomorrow. The arena itself seems to sigh, the great structure relaxing after exertion. You picture the senators returning to villas, the vendors counting coins, the emperor reclining, his thumb already forgotten, and you below remain the residue of their entertainment. Night returns heavy, yet oddly calm. The roar has passed, leaving behind a hollow echo. You feel both diminished and expanded. Diminished by the machine that used you, expanded by the fact that you endured. The Colosseum has taken much, but it has not yet taken all. You lean back against the wall, listening to the steady breath of others, and realize that even in the aftermath, life insists on continuing, however faintly.